All right guys, what is growing on? So Jim's getting ready to walk us through and show us his newest garden area, and he said that this was pretty much some of the worst soil they had on the property. Very compacted, nothing was really growing here. Wait to see what's growing on now. Jim, what's growing on?
It's a thriving garden here. Yeah, it's kind of a newer thing. We're kind of doing, you know, more of a perennial thing mixed with annuals like I do in Florida more so. So come through the garden gate. Ooh. Dodge the kiwi. So that's a hardy kiwi, which should cover that arbor, which will be awesome. It's got a male and female. But the main thing about this garden was it was started probably 2 years ago. The centerpiece of this garden was a spruce tree that the limbs came out to here.
Wow.
You know, and it was like 40 feet tall. So it's like growing in the woods. So this is some of the worst pine straw acidy soil you could have, right? And then it went off into a gravelly loam that I didn't think anything would grow. It was all pasture rose and goldenrod and asters, and I just heaped the grass in here, like 3 foot deep, right? And originally we just planted arc outside, so that would have been 2 years ago. We planted an arc outside the tree or the bow line here, and then last year we had the tree cut down, mulched this heavy, and started growing there, and put the blueberries in, the peaches, and then started growing annuals out here. Last year this is where our garlic crop came out of. This year brought all those onions from Florida, the ones I started there in February, and they're rocking. And then I wish I had the fork. Oh, we can pull some. And these are potatoes that usually I don't let them get this old because I dig them as new, but I've sold those at market already. So I think these are the magic mollies.
Those are pretty.
Look how far out they go. And then, they go deep. If I had the fork, we'd be, look at how nice that is. And then look at where they're growing. Check that out, Pete.
Way down there?
No, look at the root.
Oh, right around the tree root.
That's the tree root from way over there.
Whoa.
So this is pretty much unusual garden space for most people's ideas, but the grass makes it rich because the worms start feeding on it, and then look at the soil. Friable. I mean, we've had a lot of rain, and that isn't mud, you know? It's got the worms in it. It's just like a miraculous thing with this feeding the garden, the grass, or feeding the soil life, the grass, and it just transforms much quicker than I would have believed. And then, again, this is some of the popcorn that was the same age as the 10-foot stuff over there that I saved in case that one had problems.
Half the size, huh?
Yeah.
Jeez.
But still fertile right around that crappy tree.
Jim, I'm seeing a ton of grass in these areas. I mean, mulch. I mean, you're not getting a lot of weed penetration either. How is that possible?
Because the
Are you weeding every day for 2 hours? I mean, what's going on?
You know, I went through the other day and there's a few dandelions which are deep-rooted coming up, and I popped those out with a fork. But it's just not letting the sun hit the surface, because if we go here...
I mean, Jim, this is like the biggest question we get with this grass-fed vegetable thing. Isn't he introducing all this different weed seed? You know, isn't that a problem? You're cutting this grass, you're bringing it in the garden, you're introducing stuff that's not here?
You know,
in theory?
I don't know the science behind if the actual seeds will rot in this, you know, slimy kind of area, because it gets slimy. And I don't know that the soil life isn't eating the weed seeds. You know, nobody thinks about that, but I just wanted to do this year, so when I dug the potatoes here, I didn't put the hay back on top. I just wanted to see. And there's latent weed seeds. I went through here and weeded it the other day, but they're still popping. So they were just waiting for sunlight exposure. And as soon as you get that, they'll start growing because they're going to heal the soil because I don't got to cover with grass, which is healing the soil. So as long as you got grass cover, you will not have the problem. But the biggest problem is if you got a big microherd and you can't keep the grass mulch because they eat it faster than you can bring it on. That's my biggest balancing problem, is to keep enough grass. And most of the time when the gardens are really productive, like this one and the one out front, it takes 6 inches of grass 3 times a year.
Wow. So I mean, as you're building soil, as you're building the microherd, the requirement for grass is actually going up because it's eating it more.
Eating and reproducing.
Wow.
So it's a stocking rate if you're talking about like mob grazing. You can only feed so many cattle on this much land.
I love the comparison.
Otherwise you need to get more land or get richer land that can, mob graze with a more, bigger herd. But so, I'll go ahead and mulch this when I replant, but, so right now, some of the stuff I cut this morning will start going in here because this was mulched, with 6 inches of mulch really thickly because this was around potatoes, right? So it was piled this deep around the potatoes.
How high? Show us again.
Like this. Whoa. I mean, fluffy. If you pushed it down, it's probably like that. But look, I mean, it's almost gone. The onions were mulched really heavy. These are actually shallots, and
There's nothing left of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and so that's when the weeds will start popping up. But then, the reason is because, see, there's the wormhole, 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 and they're just sucking it down. And it's kind of interesting. Oh, it shows it right here. So see where there wasn't much grass here? Because I left it bare and the weeds are coming up. But so they're already coming up and grabbing all of it around. So there's a wormhole here, I'll betcha. See how they pulled that out?
That is crazy. They're pulling it down in there.
Well, can't you see these little haystacks?
Yeah, little haystacks. They're worm stacks.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, they're just
literally pulling it down in the ground to eat it.
And the bummer, I've told you this before, is they'll do the same thing with carrots that I planted.
So they're pulling the whole little baby carrot.
Just like Bugs Bunny.
Wow.
And so carrots are hard to grow in this system. So again, I've tried it a couple times and, it seems the winter slows them down. So I don't think so I'm going to try some winter carrots, but I just gave up on carrots. I've learned I'd rather have that microherd and let them eat my grass and not grow carrots. I can grow plenty of carrots in Florida. That's my carrot country.
Gotcha.
So this is closer to the permaculture idea of a perennial polyculture, long term. So look what's here. These cherry trees, I still think she planted them a little too close because I've seen shellies and they're huge. But that's mixed in. But
I see a cherry in there.
Oh yeah.
Right in the crop.
Yeah, next year they'll be loaded. And then the peaches, peach, and then blueberries all across the front, which will get 8 and 10 feet tall.
Is this a pear?
Yep, Asian pear, Bartlett pear. But in the meantime, before these fill in, I've got all this sunlight that can be used for annual vegetables. So I'm plugging that in.
You're getting ready to replant this area.
Well, yeah, I really missed the boat. I should have had winter squash in here. But I was a little worried about last year they overtook the blueberries because they run so far. So that was a mistake on my part. This was, wasted space that I could have been growing a veggie. But otherwise, and then, back to permaculture, stacking function is, so, and it just happens over time that this, you read stuff and you think about stuff, but so in the past 2 years, there's been, last year I had peas here, okay? And this is a integral fence that was necessary to keep the porcupines out, right? So I've got a 6 foot tall fence and I'm putting these pole beans on that'll go 12 feet. And I probably got, 600 pounds or $600 worth of pole beans off that, right? Kept the fence. And then I've also watched, as far as the stacking function, anytime you would put a pole or fence somewhere, the birds sit on it as a perch. And birds, when they sit, they poop. So they're also pooping right where your plants are. Oh, wow. Even though I got a nitrogen fixing plant. Okay, and now the idea that actually 2 years ago, the fence was here. Okay, can you picture it? She moved it out last year. So
expanded, yeah.
Okay, and so now I had all that grass, right? It was outside the fence currently, right? So this was a grass patch as she moved it out. So what I did, and it wasn't all successful, so my idea was to dig a trench and plant asparagus in it, the crowns. Throw the sod upside down on this area where the rest of the grass was, right? So I'm smothering grass with itself turned upside down. Stuck potatoes under it, right? And got a great potato crop.
Wow.
I've got an established asparagus bed that didn't do so good. And I've expanded the garden. Okay, and now I've done the same thing, because previous, right on the edge of the fence, I'd grown potatoes. So now that's what's happening outside, right? I'm growing potatoes outside. As the ooze effect that I should talk about more is that when you concentrate fertility, it tends to ooze out the edges, right? Whereas a lot of times with traditional organic gardening, you're taking a lot of plant food and spreading it over a large area to barely feed the plants. And so you don't get an ooze effect, you get a dissolution of fertility because it's spread too far. But when you concentrate it, it tends to just ooze out the edges. So again, you've got this almost exponential increase of fertility if you can feed the soil life after it's created. So then this year, okay, potatoes are out. When I got here, I planted the onions. And then I'm going, wow, the strawberries did really good. I should put strawberries in here, more of a long-term perennial crop, high value, and interplanted that. So they'll take over where the onions come out. And then I actually interplanted with Florida-grown leeks and a few more onions. So I'm still getting the space for the onions and the leeks while the strawberries are establishing.
Wow. Pretty cool.
So stuff's happening. And then, you know, if I was on top of it again, I just can't keep up with everything. This could have got all planted with, you know, another round of veggies. But, you know, I really don't have a customer base yet to supply more than, you know, 20 bunches of anything. You know, I could have produced, you know, 100 bunches of kale or chard out of here every week if I would have planted it. But I have no place to send it but to the goats.
So the market's not like Florida?
No, and I don't count on it being it. This is kind of...
Population's not like Florida, yeah.
No, because I do good enough in Florida that I can, which is another thing that, you know, is a valuable thing about not getting too big. You know, because I only need like 40 or 50 customers, regular customers in Florida to supply my needs. And so that allows me to experiment, you know, and by allowing me to experiment, I'm usually, you know, a lot of failures, but also new things that actually increase my production, you know. But if I had a base of customers that I'm barely being able to reach, I couldn't take any chances. Wow. And I still have failures and they'll be out, but you know, you can't take that chance, you know. And I bet, you know, Casey will start seeing that as he gets bigger and bigger. You know, he'll say, oh, I don't know if I can try turmeric this year because I need that space for turnips or whatever, you know. So there's a balance there.
And this whole area was sheet mulched also?
No, no sheet mulch. So there is no, so that's the idea of establishing a bed. I'm thinking that's the best way to get it rocking with a lot of fertility, to use the goats, which I never had access to before. So again, use what becomes available to you. So if you know, I mean, I remember my buddy Rob Heck, I don't even remember him from way back when, a permaculture kid, lived up in Dade City.
Okay.
There's some company up there that produces freeze-dried coffee for the cruise lines. And they would deliver 20 yards of coffee grounds. And so he started getting it, you know, and I live in Port Richey, right? And I got free compost, so I use it. So look at what's in your area, not what I'm using or Rob's using or Pete's using. Find out what's here. And so, you know, the grass is, you know, Aaron Bell from Tide Mill Farm says, down East Maine can't grow a lot of stuff, but you can sure grow grass, you know, and that was when it was raining more. But yeah, this is just grass.
So you smothered this with grass. You smothered grass with grass here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I've done that.
Get the comment like, I don't have seaweed, so it's use what you got.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, seaweed, yeah, just the, you know, the idea of getting a nutrient base, yeah. And, you know, Florida seaweed, you know, that's an option. You know, I had some issues with that as far as it not breaking down as fast. This stuff, the old timers always use seaweed here. You know, the old gardeners, they always talk about it. Yeah, it's just rocking with the onions. I mean, I'll continue to grow. I mean, look at this. I mean, the mulch is totally gone here. Look at that. A little bit of weed pressure, but, you know, and that's an onion that was started in February in Florida, and it still would grow a little. It's not flopped over.
That was a Florida-born onion,
yep.
Huh? Wow.
And I've got some that are sprouting in the greenhouse today probably that are going to Florida.
Coming back with you.
Yep, and they'll be ready in March. So I like that back and forth. And then the ultimate thing just happened yesterday. Some guy I know drove up here from Florida. He went by my house and he picked mangoes and longans and brought some bananas. And So that whole transfer of food between communities from Florida to Maine is returning, and hopefully there'll be apples going south again, and then, like I said, there's a lot of food will be going south to, you know, the people I feed in Florida.
Nice.
So I guess I talked about the pole beans, but these are an exceptional crop if you're in they don't do nothing for me in Florida. I can't grow beans on the system I use in Florida, but these pole beans are incredible. They're called nor'easter. And I don't grow beans after a few years because I hate picking them, but look at this. You can just grab,
Wow.
6 beans,
One shot?
you know, and they'll get a little longer in this and a little wider and still be tender. I mean, they're great.
Now this is a special heirloom variety you got from someone local, right?
It's in Fedco catalog, and I guess it's an old timer. It's open pollinated, so you can save the seeds. Actually, because I haven't been a seed saver, you know that. And I say, I'll just buy it. Alexander isn't. 75% of these are seeds she saved. She went ahead and picked the pods, and
Nice.
and so she had a jar for it, and me and Yamaya planted them. Yeah, and so I've used this as a, so I plant the peas first, and they've given me 5 weeks of harvest, and then these are slower, they're more warm season. Peas are early cold season, so as the peas are finishing, I'll do the last pea pick tomorrow for Carly, and then these are coming on, and I'll be getting, 30 to 50 pounds a week of these going to market and going to Carly. So that's a planting on succession. So you always got kind of, a bean and a pea are similar, and so it can fill the share well.
Jim, is that the ghost of Jim behind you there?
Kinda. Or the scarecrow.
That's the Jim
We
scarecrow.
were hoping, Alexander made that. Her and Yamaya.
Nice.
And then these peas, I bought a variety that was called tall sugar snaps, but I thought tall would be 6 feet. I mean, that's 10 foot tall.
Things are up there.
I mean, I need a freaking ladder to get them.
Wow.
And and they're starting to fall because they probably go higher, but they don't got support. So again, a nitrogen fixing crop, high value. Probably there's a planting of it out front that Alexander did really early before I got here. And there's probably 500 bucks came out of this planting on a fence that had to be here anyway.
These are probably popular at the market, huh?
Oh yeah. And then, so these are blueberries, high bush. And this area here is kind of wet. There's a little drainage creek that runs there, and this is traditionally always wet. And just by where I was harvesting some huckleberries when you were here like 4 years ago, I found some high bush in a bog. So they are really liking wet soils. I mean, they were growing above water actually in a bog. And so we placed them here and they've thrived. Some of these are like twice as big as where I've seen people plant them in dryland situations.
So basically mimics just what you saw in nature.
Yep. And then, these are a long-term crop. I mean, Carol Bryan's got some that are 35 years old. And, they had a little dieback this year because they're so old. She tries to thin them. But, she was getting like 60 and 70 gallons of berries.
For people watching, that's the owner of Site Supply?
That's the Site Supply, yep.
Okay. That's the hat you always have on.
Right.
All right. They're on back
She
order.
owes me a new one.
owes
The
you a
hats
new
are
one.
too? Oh, no.
I think everything's on back order over there.
Could be. Look at those berries, though. That's a lot different than the low bush. I don't think they're as
a little bigger than
flavorful.
what we were getting yesterday.
Yeah, but so it's a good variety. And then you wouldn't think peaches are good for Maine, but they develop varieties. The problem here is too much cold. The problem in Florida is not enough cold, so they develop varieties for both. But
That's so funny.
they're short-lived here, though. You're looking at lucky to get 7 or 8 years out of a peach tree here, but still high production. These are only 3 years old.
All right, so another awesome little garden feature. Lots of pro tips there. If you guys enjoyed this, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more of the gym videos, the gym tour up here in Maine, be sure to hit that subscribe button, that bell, so you get a notification every time we upload a new video. Most importantly, get out there and pound some dirt.